Namaste. My name is Janapati Das, and we are going to continue with our reading of the Bhagavad Gita as it is, translated and purported upon by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. If you were listening to the last video, I apologize. My phone, if it's full of stuff, it generally will shut off if it gets too full. So we will start with the reading from chapter 1, verse 6. When we start up again. And so I'd like to take this opportunity to offer my respects to you. Thank you very much for tuning in, and also to offer my respectful obeisances unto my Guru Dev, Jagaguru Siddha Swarupananda Paramahamsa Srila Prabhupada Namo Siddha Swarupananda Paramahamsa Namine Gora Karuna Swarupaya Radha Krishna Prastayate. And I ask His mercy and only wish to transmit the information clearly that He has taught me, and I offer my respectful obeisances unto my spiritual grandfather, Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, Namo Bhaktivedanta Swami Namine Gora Karuna Swarupaya Radha Krishna Prastayate. So we will start with our chanting of Krishna's names. So please join along. This is the prime benediction for humanity at large. It is the means, it is the way to come to understand our true identity as spirit souls, as eternal servants of Krishna, loving servants of Krishna, and to understand the message of the Bhagavad Gita. Namo Siddha Swarupananda Namine Gora Karuna Swarupaya Radha Krishna Namo Siddha Swarupananda Paramahamsa Namine Gora Karuna Swarupaya Radha Krishna Prastayate. Haribol. Om Gana Tamiranda Shagana Jana Shadakara Chaksha Militamyanata Mashugalave Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, and my spiritual master opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my respectful obeisances unto them. So we are going to continue with our reading of the Bhagavad Gita as it is. As we recall, Arjuna has gone on to the battlefield. Actually, we're not even at that part of the story yet, right? We're at the beginning where Sanjaya was revealing through his mystic powers to the blind king Dhritarashtra about what was going on in the battlefield for the battle of Kurukshetra. And in the beginning, the son of King Duryodhana, the son of Dhritarashtra, was going to his martial teacher Dronacharya and kind of egging him on, trying to criticize him for his sort of softness towards the Pandavas and ensuring that he will actually truly be fighting for the cause of Duryodhana in his side of the battle and not for the Pandavas. Because actually many of the teachers and great warriors, General Bhishma, they were very affectionate to the Pandavas because the Pandavas were very righteous, very holy, and were protected by Sri Krishna. All the reasons why you should be fighting on that side, but of course these people, being obligated by economic necessity and ties to the Kuru dynasty, took the side of Duryodhana and Dhritarashtra. And so Duryodhana is basically reiterating the great warriors that were on the battlefield on both sides. And there were the Maharathas, Mahabhagos, mighty armed, mighty great chariot fighters, incredible warriors on both sides. This is a battle that cost the lives of millions of people there was no other battle quite like it. It's significant, and as we were reading, it was also very significant because they called it the Dharma Kshetra, Kurukshetra. It is a holy ground. Dharma means religious, but also the duty. It's a term that is what religious activities are inherent in the living entities and in society of the Vedic society. What we think about as religion is translated often as religion, dharma, right? Because when we think about religion, we think about these things that we join or we quit. And there's Christianity and Hinduism and Buddhism and all these kind of things. But dharma in the Vedic tradition was considered something that was inherent in the society, that was in not only the society but also inherent in the living entity, spiritual entity known as Sanatana Dharma, the eternal function, the function that we did. It wasn't really seen of something that you would join or quit, but it was just something that was inherent with the living entity and living in society. So was called Dharma Kshetra, the field of religious activities. So not only was there a great holy battle of the Kurukshetra battle of Kurukshetra, but great sages had in the past discussed there. It was a very holy location, and of course this is very fitting, known as the Bhagavad Gita, the Song of God, because Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the source of all things, material and spiritual, is on this battlefield. And so it's very fitting that the war itself even was part of Krishna's plan, part of Krishna's desire to happen. This war, even though it was a very unjust material sort of sense, Krishna also saw this. There was a bigger picture, and this, of course, Krishna is explaining the science of bhakti yoga to Arjuna on this field that has to do with great religiousness, and so because the Bhagavad Gita was spoken also on this field, the greatest spiritual treatise, one of the greatest scriptures in the world, it is fitting that it's done here on this field where Arjuna is driving the chariot of Arjuna and speaking the Bhagavad Gita. So chapter 1, text 6 continued. So since we got cut off last time, I'll read it again. Yuyuda manus cha vikranta uta mauchas cha viravan sabadro drapadeyascha sarva eva mata lata. Translations. Yuyudmanu, Sha, and Vikrantaha, mighty, Utamaudicha, Cha, and Viravan, very powerful, Sabhadra, the son of Subhadra. So the son of Subhadra was actually Subhadra's Krishna's sister, and sometimes you see the Jagannath, Balaram, and Subhadra, the deities for Ratha Yatra. So this is Subhadra, the sister, but also was married to Arjuna, so had children, and the sons of Draupadi. So Arjuna had basically two wives, and Draupadi, of course, was the wives of all the other Pandavas as well. All these great so wait a minute, let's see, okay. Sons of Draupadi, Cha, and Sarve al Eva, certainly, Maharata, great chariot fighters. Maharata, we had talked about, was the great. Maha means great. Rata are chariot fighters or warriors on the field. And they were. When you put Maha in front of it, that means not just great as like, that's great, but like actually physically, spiritually, emotionally, everything about these fighters was way beyond any kind of warrior nowadays. Text 7. Ashmakam tu vishishta ye tan niboda. Sorry, I didn't read the last translation. There are the mighty Yuyadmanu, the very powerful Utamauja, the son of Subhadra, and the sons of Draupadi. All these warriors are great chariot fighters. Text 7. Ashmakam tu vishita te ye tan niboda dividjo tama nayakamama sanyasha samganartam tan bravimi te. Synonyms. Ashmakam, our, too, but, vishita, especially powerful, ye, those, tan, then, niboda, just take note, be informed, divojama, the best of the brahmanas. I like, it's kind of neat because they always they have this way of referring to in the Kshatriya warrior, but also the Vedic system of like giving them titles. And so you'll see that oftentimes Arjuna will refer to Krishna, and Krishna will refer to Arjuna with certain kinds of names. They have different names that mean different things. So, for example, Devojtama, the best of the brahmanas. Nayaka, captains. Mama, my. Sanyasya, of the soldiers. Samganaratam, for information. That's very interesting because in that word samgana, gana, like in Gani Yoga, has to do with knowledge or knowing something. So this is translated as for information. So that's related to. Sometimes you see certain Sanskrit, I guess what they would call prefix. I don't know the terminology in the Sanskrit grammar, but they're in the words and they refer to different things. Tan, them. Bravimi, I am speaking. te, your. Translation, O best of the Brahmana. So there's that word, devojtama. O best of the Brahmana, for your information, let me tell you about the captains who are especially qualified to lead my military force. So Dronacharya was actually a Brahmana by class, by caste. He was a Brahmana. He was a spiritual master, but he also was knowledgeable in the military science. Text 8. Bhavan Bishmash cha Karnash cha Kripash cha Samintinjaya Ashvatama Vikarnas cha Salmadatis Tataiva cha. Bhavan, yourself. Bhishma, grandfather Bhishma. Cha, also. Karna. So we see some of these characters coming up. Karna, of course, was the first son of Kunti, who Kunti wanted to test her boon that she'd been given, where she could mate with different demigods and produce sons, right? And so she just tested it because she didn't really know if it was true or not. And all of a sudden Surya appeared, and she was like, oh, I'm unmarried, and this would be very sinful for me to have sexual relations before married. And Surya said, I can't reverse the boon, but I will make it so that you will remain a virgin. And so she still was remaining a virgin when she married Pandu. So Kripa, it's Kripacharya, it's another teacher. Cha and Samintinjaya, Samitinjaya, always victorious in battle. So I think a Jaya, right, is victorious. Jaya Shri Krishna, Jaya. When we say Jaya, we always say victory, right? Ashvatama, Vikarna, Cha, as well as Samadatihi, the son of Somadatta, Tata, and as Eva, certainly, Cha, and. Translation, there are personalities like yourself, Bhishma, Karna, Kripa, Ashvatama, Vikarna, the son of Somadatta, called Bhurishrava, who are always victorious in battle. So Ashvatama is also a character, the son of Dronacharya, who will be a very important figure in the latter part of the story, where he tried to kill the child of the sons of the Pandavas were all killed off by Ashvatthama at the end of after the battle. They were beheaded in their sleep, and then he tried to launch a Brahmastra weapon, which was like a nuclear weapon, which was signified by or armed by mantras. Very amazing kind of powerful weaponry at this time of the history, and he was going to launch it and kill off the lineage of the Pandavas because of what they did to his father. They killed his father, Dronacharya. Sort of spoiler alert there. Everybody dies. Most people die, actually, in the Battle of Kurukshetra. And he tried to launch this, and Krishna protected the wife who was in the child, because the child in the womb was King Parikshit, who would become a great king, and of course eventually learn about the Srimad Bhagavatam from Shukadev Goswami. So things are connected. It's really wonderful. If you can get a chance, trying to think of the name of the translator of the Mahabharata that was most commonly used. If I think about it, I will. If I remember it, I'll mention it here. So if you want to order it on Amazon, you can. Okay. Dronacharya, purport. Dronacharya mentioned the exceptional heroes in battle, all of whom are ever victorious. Vikarna was the brother of Duryodhana. Ashvatthama is the son of Dronacharya. And Shalmadati is Bhurishrava, or is the son of the king of the Balikas. I think Vikarna was the brother who was. I'm trying to think of how he came in. He wasn't one of the original 100 sons that were Duryodhana's brothers, that were born of the flesh that Gandhara, the mother, had given up, and then they cut up the. I'm getting into another story. Basically, I won't get into that whole story about how the sons of Duryodhana the children of Dhritarashtra were born. Duryodhana and his brothers, but there was another brother called Vikarna. I believe it was Vikarna, who was born. Dhritarashtra had a maidservant, I think, and had sexual relations, and then was given birth to Vikarna. But he was sympathetic. He was righteous, unlike his brothers, and so he was sympathetic to the cause of the Pandavas and took their side. So Ashwatthama so Karna is a half-brother of Arjuna, as he was born to Kunti before her marriage with King Pandu. Kripacharya married the twin sister of Dronacharya. So a lot of intermarriage and a lot of connections. So it was interesting, though. Kripacharya fought on the side of Duryodhana, but Dronacharya... sorry. Got that mixed up. Yeah. I'm thinking of Drupada. Okay, anyway. Text 9. Anye cha bahava surya made arta tayakta jivitaha nana shastra praharana sarve yuda visharada. Anye, many others. Cha, also. Bahavaha, in great numbers. So Baha, right? Baha comes from the word Baho, which means great. Then we have the Mahabahu, mighty armed, right? Suryas, heroes. Madarte, for my sake. Tayakta jivita, prepared to risk a life. Nana, many. Shastra, weapons. Praharana, equipped with. Sarve, all them. Yuddha, battle. Visharadaha, experienced in military science. Translation: there are many other heroes who are prepared to lay down their lives for my sake. All of them are well equipped with different kinds of weapons, and all are experienced in military science. It was a time of the Kshatriyas that it wasn't just like you basically are learning your military science from a disciplic lineage. And so Dronacharya was not just a teacher, he was also a disciple of a military scientist. So it is handed down just like the spiritual masters hand down the spiritual information. The military science was taught to students, and the students taught them to their students, and so on and so on. As far as the others are concerned, like Jayadratha, Kritavarma, Shalya, etc., all are determined to lay down their lives for Duryodhana's sake. In other words, it is already concluded that all of them would die in the battle of Kurukshetra for joining the party of the sinful Duryodhana. Duryodhana was, of course, confident of his victory on account of the above-mentioned combined strength of his friends. So he's looking at the surface, kind of thinking like, well, from a materialistic point of view, we have the, grandfather Bhishma, like incredible warriors on his side, right? But they don't have Krishna. That's the key. And I think, the great warriors like Dronacharya, Kripacharya, Bhishma, they all knew, and even Dhritarashtra in the back of his mind knew it was over from even before it started, because it would be however Krishna decided how many people were going to die, that was already predetermined. But with Krishna on the side of the Pandavas, there is no victory for their side. Text 10. Aparyaptam tad ashmakyam balam bishma barakshitam paryapatam tvidam etesham balam bima birakshitam aparyaptam, immeasurable. So I think probably something like paryaptam probably was measurable. When you put a in front of it, it means the opposite, right? immeasurable, not measurable. Tat, that, Ashmakyam, of ours, Balam, strength. So we have Lord Balaram. His name Bala means strength, but the kind of strength that we not only is Balaram very strong, but he can provide spiritual strength for his devotees. So we pray to Lord Balaram, Lord Nityananda, for the spiritual strength to serve our spiritual master, because Balaram is also the original spiritual master too. So we pray to Lord Balaram for the strength to be able to serve Krishna, to serve our spiritual master. But this kind of Balaam was talking about the strength of these warriors. Our strength is immeasurable, and we are perfectly protected by grandfather Bhishma, whereas the strength of the Pandavas, carefully protected by Bhima, is limited. Now, Bhima was also a very powerful individual, extremely powerful, so you can't underestimate that, especially since he was so angry at his cousins. He was ready to rip, and when the battle started, he did rip. But, you know, it's a good point from a materialistic point of view. You would think, like, well, Bhishma is completely never lost a battle, you know, great, incredible warrior. The story in the Mahabharata of his feats and his abilities, anyway. Purport: herein is an estimation of comparative strength made by Duryodhana. He thinks that the strength of his armed forces is immeasurable, being specifically protected by the most experienced general, grandfather Bhishma. On the other hand, the forces of the Pandavas are limited, being protected by a less experienced general, Bhima, who is like a fig in the presence of Bhishma. Duryodhana was always envious of Bhima because he knew perfectly well that if he should die at all, he would only be killed by Bhima. But at the same time, he was confident of his victory on account of the presence of Bhishma, who was a far superior general, which was true. His conclusion that he would come out of the battle victorious was well ascertained. Text 11. Ayaneshu cha shabeshu yata bhagam avashtita Bhishmam eva bilash shantu bhavantaha sarve eva chi. Anyeshu, the strategic points, cha, also, sarveshu, everywhere, yata bhagam, are as they are differently arranged, avishtitaha, situated. Bhishmam, unto grandfather Bhishma. Now, this is very interesting, this word avishtitaha. I recognize it because, once again, they're using it in this case in a sort of, strategic meaning, but in a spiritual, it gets mentioned again in the shtitaha, which means to be situated in loving service to Krishna, later when it's mentioned. So it's just interesting recognition. Bhishmam, unto grandfather Bhishma, eva, certainly, Abhirak Shantu, support may be given. Bhavantaha, all of you. Sarve, respectively. Eva, certainly. Ki, exactly. Now all of you must give full support to grandfather Bhishma, standing at your respective strategic points in the phalanx of the army. Now we're talking about the phalanxes there. Grandfather Bhishma had a organization on the field in a certain kind of pattern. That was what a phalanx was. And both sides would do this, trying to outwit the other army, without even really knowing, maybe just speculating. But, that was why they were learned in military science, because they could know these things. Purport: Duryodhana, after praising the prowess of Bhishma, further considered that others might think that they have been considered less important. So in his usual diplomatic way, he tried to adjust the situation in the above words. He emphasized that Bhishma Dev was undoubtedly the greatest hero, but he was an old man, so everyone must especially think that of his protection from all sides. He might become engaged in the fight, and the enemy might take advantage of his full engagement on one side. Therefore, it was important that other heroes would not leave their strategic positions and allow the enemy to break the phalanx. Duryodhana clearly felt that the victory of the Kurus depended on the presence of Bhishma Dev. He was confident of the full support of Bhishma Dev and Dronacharya in the battle because he well knew that they did not even speak a word when Arjuna's wife, Draupadi, in her helpless condition, had appealed to them for justice while she was being forced to strip naked in the presence of all the great generals in the assembly. Although he knew that the two generals had some sort of affection for the Pandavas, he hoped that all such affection would now be completely given up by them, as was customary during the gambling performances. So that is referring to a story in the Mahabharata that drove the Pandavas, their wife and their mother. Actually, I believe the mother stayed under the protection, didn't go into the forest this time, but sent them in for a 12-year hiatus, basically in the forest, because Duryodhana, being advised by his uncle Shakuni, who was a sly kind of like cheater, gambler, to challenge Yudhishthira to a gambling match. And it was the etiquette, they had very strict etiquette, that if a warrior was challenged to a gambling, even though gambling is technically against, not technically, but definitely against the four regulative principles for devotees, as a Kshatriya warrior, they like to challenge each other into different things. That's why they like fighting, they like gambling. So Yudhishthira, knowing very well that Shakuni was a bit of a cheater and was not as superior in dice to Shakuni, because Shakuni actually threw the dice in place of Duryodhana because he was an expert dice thrower, but also had loaded the dice to cheat, and they knew that they were cheating. But in every time Yudhishthira would bet different kinds of things, eventually giving up his kingdom, his clothes, and then giving themselves up. And then Duryodhana, who wanted to marry Draupadi, was trying to get Yudhishthira to, I guess he did bet his wife and lost his wife, and so they, in their kind of mockery, they went and got her, and they grabbed her by their hair, and they tried to disrobe her in the presence, basically take off all her clothes and mock her in the presence of all these generals. And none of the generals at the time, I was saying, even though Bhishma and all these great generals and Dhritarashtra were affectionate to the Pandavas, they didn't say anything in the gambling match. They were mute. And Draupadi eventually realized that her husbands could not protect her, so she took shelter of Krishna. And the story was, Krishna, in her heart, she took shelter, please protect me. And Krishna immediately protects the devotee. So he made it so that her cloth became unlimited. So they're just trying to pull off all this cloth, and she's not getting disrobed. And finally, they eventually gave up. And they sent the Pandavas into exile. Draupadi was not expected to go, but she went with her husbands anyway. The mother they kept because he was older. Kunti was older. And so now here Duryodhana is hoping that, because they had also kept quiet during the gambling match, that these generals and people that, although affectionate to the Pandavas, would also give up that affection in fighting. And they did. They were very affectionate to them, but they fought like true warriors. But once again, Krishna is on the right side, so it's not, no matter how well you fight, it still will go towards Krishna. Text 12. Tasya Shanjanyan Harsham Kuru Vridaha Pita Maha Shima Nadam
Vinadyo Chai Sankyam Dadmao Pratapavan Tasha his Sanjanyayan increasing Harsham cheerfulness Kuru Vidraha the grandsire of the Kuru dynasty Bhishma Pita Maha the grandfather. Pita of course means father and Maha means great, which is sort of like the grandfather. Shima Nadam roaring sound like a lion. So we have that word Shima, Shinga, like from Shinga, lion, right? Or Shringa. Interestingly enough, it's also, there is just as a thing that I learned when I was living in Africa, there is a word in different African languages as Simba, which means lion, and even a drum dance called Simba. And so this comes from the Sanskrit word because the world was a Vedic civilization at one point, so languages cross over. Vinadya, vibrating. Uchaihi, very loudly. Shankyam, conch shell. Dadmao, blue. Pratapavan, the valiant. Then Bhishma, the great valiant, grandsire of the Kuru dynasty, the grandfather of the fighters, blew his conch shell very loudly like the sound of a lion, giving Duryodhana joy. Purport. Okay, so this is, the very beginning of the fight, but it's not quite started yet because we'll have the whole Bhagavad Gita where Krishna is talking before the battle actually starts. The grandsire of the Kuru dynasty could understand the inner meaning of the heart of his grandson Duryodhana, and out of his natural compassion for him, he tried to cheer him by blowing his conch shell very loudly, befitting his position as a lion. These devotees were very, very equiposed. They knew the evilness of the Duryodhana, but they also had a spiritual understanding that these were living entities under the influence of Maya Devi, and they were affectionate as a family member, would still be even for their evil grandchildren. Indirectly, by the symbolism of the conch shell, he informed his depressed grandson Duryodhana that he had no chance of victory in the battle because the Supreme Lord Krishna was in the other side. But still, it was his duty to conduct the fight, and no pains would be spared in that connection. So he is going to fight like he can fight, but he's saying it is a losing battle because Krishna is on the other side. He knew that. Text 13. Tata Shankyash Cha Berash Cha Panavanaka Gomukya Sahashaiva Baya Hanyanta Sashabyash Tumulo Bhavat. Tata thereafter. Shankya, conch shells. Cha also. Berya, bugles. Cha, end. Panava Anaka, trumpets and drums. Gomukha, horns. Sahashya, all of a sudden. Eva, certainly. Abhyant yanta, being simultaneously sounded. Sa, that. Shabya, combined sound. Tumula, tumultuous. Abhavata, bhavat, became. Translation. After that, the conch shells, bugles, trumpets, drums, and horns were all suddenly sounded, and the combined sound was tumultuous. So this is a pretty amazing fight. Bowmen, warriors on massive elephants, different kinds of battle phalanxes and musical instruments, and warriors of all kinds and all sizes going at it. Text 14. Tata Shavechar Heyar Yukte Mahati Shiandane Stitao. There's that word, situated again. Madhava Pandavaschaiva Divalyo Sankyao Pradad Matuhu. There Tata, thereafter, Sve Tehi, by white, Heihi, horses, Yukte, being yoked. Now that's a very interesting word. Yukta and yoga are, in the word Sanskrit, are very similar. Connected, yoked, and yoked comes from originally from yoga, and yukta is a derivative of that. And this has to do with connection of the living entity to God in loving relationship. Yoga is the spiritual relationship of the living entity with God, and this is what the Bhagavad Gita is about. But here it is, of course, yukte being used as an actual yoked, right? Mahati, in the great Shyandane chariot, Shtita, so situated. There's that word again. Madhava, Krishna Madhava, right? The son and the husband of the goddess of fortune. Pandavaha, Arjuna, the son of Pandu. Cha, also. Eva, certainly. Divao, transcendental. Shankyal, conch shells. Pradad matuhu, sounded. Translation: on the other side, both Lord Krishna and Arjuna, stationed on a great chariot drawn by white horses, sounded their transcendental conch shells. Let's take a look at that picture again. So there's our white horses, the great white horses, and Arjuna and Krishna driving the chariot, and the flag of Hanuman up here. Amazing, wonderful. In the contrast with the conch shell blown by Bhishma Deva, the conch shells in the hands of Krishna and Arjuna are described as transcendental. The sounding of the transcendental conch shells indicated that there was no hope of victory for the other side, because Krishna was on the side of the Pandavas. Jayashtu Pandu Putranam Yesham Pakshe Janadan. So this is also a wonderful remembrance that when Krishna is driving your chariot, surrendering your life to Krishna, there is all hope. And this is why when the living entity goes back to Krishna at the end of his life, and he returns, he leaves his body, people say Jai, because he's going back to Krishna. He's basically victorious. He has defeated death. He has defeated the material, his existence in the material world of which he put himself into. Now he is returning back to Krishna. It's a wonderful, it is all victorious. Victory is always with persons like the son of Pandu, because Lord Krishna is associated with them. And whenever and wherever the Lord is present, the goddess of fortune is also there, because the goddess of fortune never lives alone with her husband. So sometimes you see, Mahavishnu and Lakshmi Devi is present massaging Krishna's feet. Lakshmi Devi is always with Krishna, Lord Vishnu, and Radharani is always with Krishna. So that is, Radharani is the goddess of fortune, and Lakshmi is an expansion of Radharani, our Radhika, Rukmini Devi. Therefore, victory and fortune were awaiting Arjuna, as indicated by the transcendental sound produced by both the conch shell of Vishnu or Lord Krishna. Besides that, the chariot on which both the friends were seated was donated by Agni, the fire god, to Arjuna. This indicated that the chariot was capable of conquering all sides wherever it was drawn over the three worlds. Okay, maybe one more chapter. Chapter 15. Panchajanyam Hrishikesho Devadantam Dhananjaya Padram Dadmao Mahashankyam Bhima Karma Vrikodara Panchajanyam, the conch shell named Panchajanya, Hrishikesh, Krishna, the Lord who directs the senses of the devotees. So Hrishikesh is the name of Krishna, which means the master of all the senses. So Krishna is the source of all the senses, but also the object of our use of the senses. He is the enjoyer of our senses. So when we use our senses in the service of Krishna, we are using our senses in the correct way. When we use our senses in our own, we are known as Godas, the servant of our senses, instead of Goswami. Goswami means the master or the teacher of the master of all the senses. So to be a Goswami is to dedicate our senses to the service of Hrishikesh, who is the master of all the senses and directs the senses of the devotees. Devadatam, the conch shell named Devadatta. Dhananjaya, or Arjuna. the winner of wealth. There's one of those titles that people refer to people as. Pandaram, the conch shell named Pandaram. De Dadmao, blue. Mahashankyam, the terrific conch shell. Bhima Karma, one who performs Herculean tasks. Because, you think of Hercules, Bhima was kind of like this very powerful. Vrikadara, the voracious eater, Bhima. Bhima liked to eat. He liked to eat those. I think even when his brother Yudhisthira was made as the emperor of the world, right, in the Rajasuya sacrifice, he was put in charge of being the chef because he knows food. So read the purport. Lord Krishna is referred to as Hrishikesh in this verse because he is the owner of all senses. And that's the point. The living entities are part and parcel of him, and therefore the senses of the living entities are also part and parcel of his senses. The impersonalists cannot account for the senses of the living entities, and therefore they are always anxious to describe all living entities as senseless or impersonal. So the monists, the yogis who teach that we are all one, they don't believe in this sense. They think that is an illusion. It has no purpose. It's not real, but we're actually just this great white light. The Lord, situated in the hearts of all living entities, directs their senses, but he directs in terms of the surrender of the living entity. In the case of the pure devotee, he directly controls the senses. So Krishna is always in control of our senses, regardless. If we're not surrendered and we're trying to use those senses to our own enjoyment, he directs those senses under the control of his external energy, Maya Devi. Here on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, the Lord directly controls the transcendental senses of Arjuna, and thus his particular name of Hrishikesh. The Lord has different names according to his different activities. For example, his name is Madhusudana because he killed the demon of the name Madhu. His name is Govinda because he gives pleasure to the cows and to the senses. His name is Vasudeva because he appeared as the son of Vasudeva. His name is Devaki Nandana because he accepted Devaki as his mother. His name is Yashoda Nandana because he awarded his childhood pastimes to Yashoda at Vrindavan. His name is Partha Sarati because he worked as a charioteer of his friend Arjuna. Similarly, his name is Hrishikesh because he gave direction to Arjuna on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. So this is what the conversation between Arjuna and Krishna, but also the conversation between all living entities and Krishna. That you must give up all varieties of religion, give up all of your attractions, give up everything, and surrender your senses, surrender your life and yourself to Krishna in love, and he will give you all protection. That's what this is about. And he was teaching this to Arjuna on the battlefield, but he also is teaching all of us. This is even as we get before the story, before the instructions in the purport itself. The Bhagavad Gita is also being revealed. It's very wonderful. Arjuna is referred to Dhananjaya in this verse because he helped his elder brother in fetching wealth when it was required by the king to make expenditures for different sacrifices. So in the Rajasuya sacrifice, Krishna, the emperor sends off his different warriors to go and get subjugation from the kings of the world and wealth, sort of like a tax, And in most cases, the kings surrender willingly because they know that it's smart to have a good connection with. But if not, there is a battle that ensues, and the victorious, which in this case was Arjuna, Bhima, Yudhisthira, and the twins, completely conquered the world and brought their booty or the money and their wealth back to Yudhisthira. Similarly, Bhima is known as Vrikadara because he could eat as voraciously as he could perform Herculean tasks such as killing the demon Hindimba, which is a Rakshasa that he fought. So the particular types of conch shells blown by the different personalities on the sides of the Pandavas, beginning with the lords, were all very encouraging to the fighting soldiers. On the other side, there was no such credits, nor the presence of Lord Krishna, the supreme director, nor that of the goddess of fortune, so they were predestined to lose the battle. And that was the message announced by the sounds of the conch shells. So we will pick up from chapter 16, but a really important point is that even though, Duryodhana, he was kind of foolish in the sense that he thought, like most people, if I just manipulate things in a certain way, in the right way, if I've got all these things with me, then I will have victory. But without Krishna, there is no victory. It's just in the same way my spiritual master says that all your achievements, and Krishna tells Arjuna, all your achievements doesn't matter how many you have, it's a bunch of zeros because you're going to have to leave it at the time of death. But if you put Krishna, you have Krishna on your chariot, you have that one in front of the zero of all your achievements. It's so much value because everything can be directed in the service of Krishna. And Krishna will provide all protection and all victory if you have Krishna. And that, Duryodhana, he thought, well, I have Bhishma and I have all these great warriors who were great warriors. And they were very pious, great warriors. And for in any other case, they would have probably won the victory. But because Krishna is with Arjuna, in the side of Arjuna and the Pandavas, there will not be any victory for them. There will be victory only for the Pandava side. And they knew this. And when they sounded the conch shell, that was what they were really implying. So we will pick up next time. Thank you very much. Namaste.